Howdy, y'all. It's Curious Raven. It is Thursday, and we have a mixed bunch of ghost stories today. I hope y'all enjoy. Number 1. After a few minutes of watching a video on my TV while I was laying on my bed covered up, a necklace that was on my lampshade that I already knocked loose and then fell and hit my feet. So I, of course, tried to explain it away by hitting it loose, and yet it just hit the ground. So I knew something had to have enough energy to not only pick up a small but pretty heavy chain necklace and throw it at my feet. So while I was talking to my sister about it on the phone, my phone kept glitching out on camera mode in my hands. And keep in mind, you have to hold it for a few minutes because it was on a lock screen. Anyways, it did this like once, maybe 3 times. I can't remember. Finally stopped when I said, "Sorry, Grandpa, that I didn't take a picture of your grave when I did Grandma." After that, I just went to bed and haven't heard from them since then. So question here for you people is, was that my dead grandfather or something else? Number 2. So I moved into this house with a couple of guys. One guy owned the house and was renting some rooms to help with his mortgage. I remember asking him if he knew what happened to the previous owner. He asked why, and I said it just feels like that type of house with history. Fast forward about 4 to 6 months. My girlfriend is taking a nap in my room and I'm watching television. Clear as day I hear her call my name. Not once, but a couple of times. I get up and go to the room and basically wake her up, asking what she wants. My girlfriend is mad as hell that I woke her up and swear she didn't call my name. Maybe she was talking in her sleep. No, check this out. I told this story to my roommates and everyone thinks I'm crazy. About 2 weeks later, my roommate, 2 dudes are watching TV. One of my roommate's girlfriend is watching TV in his room on the opposite side of the house. She comes out to the living room and asks us what we wanted. We all ask her what she's talking about. She says we were calling her name. My roommates looked at me and said, "No fucking way." I immediately said, "I told you this house is haunted." That is a true story. I think the ghost was just a prankster. My alarm clock would get all jacked up. I would be reading books, be halfway done, and then they would just disappear. Number 3. In October of 2017, I lost my husband while I was 7 weeks pregnant. The day he died, I left for work in a hurry. We shared some text after he woke up about a phone interview he had later in the day and about him having some pain in his leg. And then a quick phone call a couple hours later to tell me he was running to the pharmacy for pain meds. I attempted several calls about an hour later to make sure he made it home safe, but there was no answer, which wasn't like him. I tried calling him for hours until finally a woman answered his phone, stating she was with the sheriff's department and asked me to come home. At the time, I worked in a prison, and out of fear that he had got into some sort of trouble, I left my post to go to my car and sped the whole 30 minutes drive back to town. Upon turning to our parking garage, I see a large white van that read "Corner." As I walked up to our home, I was greeted by the same lady on the phone, blocking my view into our home, who let me know my husband suffered a heart attack, later confirmed as a pulmonary embolism, explaining the leg pain he mentioned in the morning of his death. Apparently, my husband made it back home and into the house and locked the security door before collapsing from the heart attack. He screamed for help. Our neighbor and her son heard and ran over to help, but they couldn't get into the house due to all the doors and windows being locked. The son later apologized for not breaking a window and stated due to the shock of panic he lost all sense of reason. They were able to talk to him through the door while they called 911, but unfortunately he stopped responding a few moments before help arrived and he was pronounced DOA. A week or so after his service, his best friend's wife offered a cleansing and a card reading by her mom. Although I was skeptical, at the moment I was desperate for any kind of communication with him or closure. He mentioned a lot of interesting things in the reading, but the most prominent for me was that he was currently in a stage after death where the soul relives its whole life. She compared it when people say their life flashes before their eyes. She said it was a place every soul visits after death as a way to reflect on the life they lived and the person they were. She told me his death was so sudden that he hadn't realized he had died yet, and I would need to help him cross over. She said that she felt I was the one that would help him and instructed me to light white candles and a jar of water to guide him to peace. Fast forward a few months later, I moved into my parents' house. I was laying on the couch and started to feel very heavy, as if I had been administered amnesia. It was definitely some type of sleep paralysis that I was feeling. When I would finally open my eyes, I was still laying on the couch in my parents' living room, except my husband was sitting on a chair right in front of me. As clear, as real as he was before he died. Before I could speak, he began telling me he was nervous for his phone interview, the one he was supposed to have the day he passed. He told me he was excited and hopeful he'd get the job and wanted help preparing for it. I looked at him with pain and tears, and he began to repeatedly ask me what was wrong. I apologized. "Baby, I am so sorry. Do you remember the pain you had in your leg? You have blood clots. One made its way to your heart. You aren't going to make it to the interview, baby. You died." I will never forget the look on his face. It was a long period of confusion that turned into realization. I apologized again, told him I love him, and begged him to respond, but he just sat there with this strange look in his face. I immediately woke up. The chair from my parents' kitchen table now sat right in front of me, empty. I never dreamt of him after that. I pray it's because I gave him the closure he needed to cross over. We have a 5-year-old son now who dreams very specific dreams about his dad. He wakes up talking about things he couldn't possibly know unless it came straight from his dad. Losing my husband was the first real experience with death, but it brought me peace to have my own confirmation that there is something more after life. Trigger warning, suicide. Number 4. So this happened when I was around 7 years old. I'm 17 now, and I only realized how strange it was years after the incident happened. So when I was around 7 years old, I was staying at my aunt's house in California with my mom. I don't remember why we were staying there, considering it was 10 years ago. All I remember was that it was a very sad time for my mom and my aunt. Everything was fine up until we went to sleep. I'd slept at my aunt's before this several times, so it was a space I was at least semi-comfortable with. My mom and I had always slept in the same guest bedroom together, as we were this night, and remember falling asleep pretty early in the evening. That was until I was woken up in the middle of the night, probably around 12-ish, if I had to guess, the feeling that someone was staring at me. I guess my subconscious could somehow feel that someone was there even though I was dead asleep. I opened my eyes to see a woman standing at the foot of the bed. She was wearing some kind of gown and just staring right at me, with a sad expression on her face. She had mid-length hair and bangs, and was just taller than my mother if I had to guess. She was also slightly glowing a light blue tint, like I could see her face perfectly, even in the dark bedroom. At first I thought might have just been my mom, until I looked over and saw her sound asleep next to me. After that, my memory goes blank, and all I remember is waking up the next morning with this feeling like I knew it wasn't a dream. Fast forward around a week ago. Up until this point, I think about the incident sometimes, but I just chalked it up being my aunt or something. I was having conversation with my mom at dinner when she brought up the topic of ghosts. I decided to tell her about that night and about the woman I saw so many years ago. When I told her it all happened when I was around 7 on that trip to my aunt's house, her face completely changed. She completely went silent for a few minutes before telling me about why we went to my aunt's house that day in the first place. It was because her best friend, we'll call her Natalie for privacy reasons, had attempted to take her own life 3 days earlier. Natalie initially failed and was kept in a hospital near my aunt's house for the next 3 days on life support until her family had made the ultimate decision to take her off. This is why we went to my aunt's house that night, because my mom wanted to say goodbye to her. That night she died was the same night we stayed at my aunt's, and the same night I saw that woman at the edge of the bed. When my mom told me this, my blood ran completely cold. I asked my mom to show me pictures of Natalie just to be sure. Even now, even to this day, that face was undeniably identical to the woman's. The same bangs, the same eyes, everything was the same. I shiver just thinking about it now. But the main thing I wonder most is, if that really was Natalie coming to me and my mother as a final goodbye, then why was she so sad? She looked as if she was frowning. Her ghost, I mean. The most sad I'd ever seen anyone, with this look of pure sorrow on her face. If you're skeptical of my story, that's fine, take it as you will. I just had to share this story that's left me shaken since I made the realization. Number 5. So, I believe I can see ghosts, but human ghost and animal ghost. I have 2 dogs. One is 2.5 and is a very light caramel color. The other one is around 8 months and is white with dark caramel patches. There have been 3 instances where I have seen a ghost dog. It looks exactly like my younger dog, in terms of face shape, size, etc. But instead of being white with dark caramel patches, it is fully caramel color. The first time I was looking out of the window, saw something in the reflection, turned, and there was a dog walking past me, then disappeared. Second time, I was walking past my dog's bed, and I saw something in it out of the corner of my eye. Both of my dogs were on the couch, so I took a couple steps back and saw the ghost dog. It quickly then disappeared. The third time happened right now. I'm sitting in the chair, and I saw the dog walking the same path it took when I saw it the first time. I'm thinking there might be something with the way it's walking since it carried on walking after disappearing. It would get to the dog bed where I saw it the second time. The other night I had a dream. It was kind of all over the place. But in the dream I had adopted another dog, and lo and behold, it was a ghost dog I've been seeing. Not sure if this means anything, but I'm pretty confused. I told my parents, and my mom said maybe it could be the sibling of my younger dog, but the other dogs from her litter looked the same as her. Has this happened to anyone else? Or does anyone know what this could mean? Number 6. I'm not sure if I'm in the right page of Reddit to be posting this, but any advice is helpful. Thank you. Long story short, for a couple months, I have been waking up in the middle of the night around the same time at 3:30 a.m. And I usually feel like someone is watching me. I try to convince myself it's nothing, but I went out of state for 2 days, and this never happened to me. This only happens when I'm at home. I flew back home, and this started happening again. Last night, I experienced something that just completely traumatized me. I was sleeping next to a loved one and woke up around 3:30 a.m. I forced myself to go back to sleep, and around 3:35 a.m., my loved one had to wake up because I was crying, whining. But when they woke me up, I was just frozen and couldn't really move for a couple minutes. I was so scared to go back to sleep, I just stayed up as I still felt like there was a presence. The nightmare I had was about my loved one. The one right next to me was possessed in the moment we were in and was just hitting me till I was screaming. Please, any advice is helpful because I am just scared. Number 7. This has to be my most vivid and wildest dream I've ever had. The dream. I was sitting inside a restaurant looking out the window. I could see the bar next door. It was on a corner in a busy downtown location. The name of the bar was called Hawkeye's. The front was very elegant looking and painted onto the side of the building. I told my friend who was with me that we should go to that bar. So we left and continued to go into Hawkeye's. The door was red and the inside was empty. The high top table was right near the door, and we all hung out in the empty bar and played a game. This dream was so vivid that I could remember the details of the building, the name, and the downtown location for weeks. It stuck with me for so long that I had to look into it. So I type in Hawkeyes and find the bar from my dream. It's in the Chicago in a downtown area on a corner. The name is the same and in a similar font on a sign though. The inside was the same. The door is red. Every detail besides the sign was the exact same. Even the surrounding downtown area. How could this be possible if I've never been to Chicago? I've never seen this bar in my whole life. I'm from PA and never traveled anywhere close to there. But I swear that I traveled there in my dream that one night. Maybe someday I will visit and see if it sparks any deja vu. That is the end of our stories for today. I hope y'all have a good weekend. I will see you for our Saturday creepypasta. I love y'all so much. And remember, it's scary out there. Please like and subscribe.
I live inside my own world of make-believe. Kids screaming in the cradles, profanities. I see the world through ice covered in ink and bleach. Cross